Welcome to Info Hub. In our headlines, President Granger leads high-level delegation to Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting. Financial expert briefs cabinet on setting up of Sovereign Wealth Fund, agriculture station to be constructed at Pirara, and GPL explains those recent blackouts. Stay tuned for the details of these and more.
Here's an important message from the Ministry of Finance and the Guyana Revenue Authority.
If you've never filed or paid your taxes, or have deliberately not declared your true income, and now you're worried that you'll be audited by the Guyana Revenue Authority, I have good news for you.
The Ministry of Finance has announced a tax amnesty effective January 1 to September 30, 2018.
So you can now pay all your outstanding income, property, corporate, withholding, and capital gains taxes and get right with the GRA. Visit their office or call them at 227-6060, extension 1201 or 1204 today.
Invest in your country. Pay your taxes.
We begin with news that President David Granger today arrived in London for the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting and engaged in bilateral discussions. Stacey Carmichael brings us the details.
President David Granger, on the sidelines of the 2018 Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting, met with Secretary General of the Commonwealth, Baroness Patricia Scotland, and British Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson. Minister of Foreign Affairs Carl Greenidge, who accompanied the head of state, said discussions centered around environmental issues and, more importantly, the Guyana-Venezuela border case presently before the International Court of Justice.
Guyana was able to thank them very much for the contribution they made to getting a Commonwealth position and conveying that to the world, and what is unfolding now, what is needed in the future, where the ICJ is likely to go in terms of the future steps. And then they discussed a range of issues such as the work of the Commonwealth, Aerocrama, initiatives on the environmental front, and some of the new areas of focus of the Commonwealth and of the Commonwealth SG, particularly the development of toolkits for assisting in the implementation of key policy areas, which is an initiative of the SG herself.
During the President's bilateral talks with the British Foreign Secretary, an update was also provided on the Guyana-Venezuela border case among issues of common interest.
Issues ranging from Brexit to the challenges that the UK faces, environmental issues, and so forth. Cooperation that is ongoing, that is in terms of the security initiative, and other areas. So that was a wide-ranging discussion, and I think quite fruitful.
The Foreign Affairs Minister noted that these meetings precede previous engagements, including one held by UK Prime Minister Theresa May with Caribbean countries in relation to bilateral cooperation. President Granger is expected to meet with Mozambique's President, Filipe Nyusi, attend the Commonwealth's Malaria Summit, and a welcome dinner to be hosted by Prime Minister May tomorrow. For Info Hub, Stacey Carmichael from London.
Stacey joins us again. She tells us that the need for financing for small island and developing states given the existential threats climate change poses was today reinforced by Prime Minister of Jamaica Andrew Holness at a combined forum hosted at the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting.
During the Commonwealth Combined Forum hosted today at the Queen Elizabeth Center, Prime Minister of Jamaica Andrew Holness said climate change financing for small island development states should not be treated as aid.
It really makes no sense that after the event has occurred, we try to rebuild through aid. It is imperative that the conversation around climate change and how it is to be financed be treated as an investment.
This investment in the resilience of small and developing states, Holness noted, will allow these countries to withstand and quickly recover from these extreme weather events. Meanwhile, Minister of Foreign Affairs Carl Greenidge, elaborating on the issue of climate change, said President David Granger continues to lobby the importance of green state governance as well as cooperation and collaboration for tackling the issue.
The use of the utility of lessons about how to develop environmentally, taking into account the reality of people. You can't You can't have a program that assumes that people are not part and parcel of that, not merely as managers but as also beneficiaries. So it's a pretty extensive area.
The Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting continues tomorrow with a roundtable discussion of senior business leaders and the heads of government. From London, Stacey Carmichael for InfoHub.
Guyana's production sharing agreement is comparable to fiscal regime across the globe. Tiffany Rogers has the details.
In an exclusive report published on leading local oil and gas news website OilNow, Guyana's royalty rate and revenue share of the contract with ExxonMobil and partners is described as favorable when compared with similar agreements worldwide. Guyana is classified as a frontier country, meaning a country which is now getting into oil production. The OilNow article quotes a report by UK-based Wood Mackenzie, a globally respected oil and gas research firm, and the Norwegian-based Rystad Energy. Guyana's PSA with ExxonMobil outlines that Guyana will receive 50% profit oil and 2% royalty, which Rystad estimates will return in Guyana, taking a total of 60% of the profits from the various projects, which is described as the government share. This, the report says, is in line with countries that recently opened up for exploration and production activities, where the government take is in the range of 45 to 70%. The analysis, which reviewed the agreements of 70 oil-producing countries around the world, debunks the view by some locals that Guyana did not get a fair deal when the contract was renegotiated by the coalition government in 2016. Rystad explained in the Oil Now report that Guyana has followed a path similar to other frontier countries who offered favorable fiscal terms to attract investors. It added that the government has succeeded in this regard. ExxonMobil is operating in the Stabroek block, which is estimated to contain 3.2 billion recoverable barrels of oil. The Noble Bob Douglas recently arrived in Guyana's waters and has begun drilling the 17 wells to begin oil production in 2020. Reporting for InfoHub, Tiffany Rogers.
Localized faults, the reason for the recent power outages, says GPL's Assistant Public Relations Officer Natalie Pinder. Sunil Williams has more.
Over the past 72 hours, many communities have experienced blackouts. Guyana Power and Light Incorporated PRO Natalie Pinder says,
A localized fault is basically a fault which affects a small group of persons within a community. And so the faults that occurred would have been for a number of reasons, basically loose connections, problems with transformers and fallen poles, and obviously these are due to the inclement weather.
Once a report is received, Pindar explained that a team is dispatched immediately to address the problem. Pindar reminded that maintenance is also ongoing and the weather remains a factor. The following areas are scheduled for maintenance between April 17 to 22, 2018. Unity Village, East Coast Demerara, Norton Street Lodge and its environs, Shift Chandripal Drive, Kitty Camerville, Newton Street, Vicinjon Road, Sobrianville, Prashad Nagar, and Bellear Park. Zanil Williams for InfoHub.
The Agriculture Research Station will be constructed at Cashew Lake in the Pirara area, Region 9. Seneca Thorne tells us that this decision was made after a day-long deliberation on the way forward for the Hinterland Sustainable Agriculture Development Program.
Pirara is one of 3 locations identified for the construction of a research station in Region 9. The projected location is located on Napi's proposed land extension. At the stakeholders' consultation held over the weekend in Lethem, Central Rupununi's Tushhouse, raised concerns regarding the project's location and requested its suspension until the Napi Village land extension is completed. Civil engineer Raymond Lachman explained that Cashew Lake is the smallest of 3 locations identified, which is way below what is required.
One of the locations is in Pirara itself. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Cashew Lake. That's the one I can give you a direct specific location on. The other 2 locations that we're looking at are foothills. One is at the western side of where the Napi River meets Pirara River. So that's the second location. As to the specific of the third location, because I don't have a map to point it out to you at this point, is further upstream of the Napi River, but it is not interfering or in any way hampering the flow of the Napi River.
Responding to the issue of land extension, head of Project Cycle Management Division, Ministry of Finance, Tarashan Balgobin, explained that land tenure is a drawn-out process that takes time.
Even if you wait for that, the project can't wait for it. That's the underline. The project has a timeline, the availability of the money has a timeline, but that timeline is not necessarily the same timeline of giving land titling to the communities, the extension. Not the same timeline. That timeline is a longer timeline. And this project cannot sit waiting on that to happen.
At the conclusion of the deliberation, the parties decided that the Pirara location is best suited for the project. This means that the Ministry of Agriculture will be moving ahead with the design and construction of the research station. The project is part of a US $50 million IDB loan, with the long-term objective being increased productivity in the agriculture sector while maintaining sustainable and climate resilience use of Guyana's natural resources. Sneaker Thorne for InfoHub.
The Ministry of Natural Resources said it is disappointed with the reneging of the parties involved in the understanding of the mediation process on mining in the Marudi Mountain area, Region 9. Alexis Rodney reports.
The Ministry of Natural Resources Director of Compliance Derek Lawrence said on Monday that the ministry had met last week with the parties, the Romanex Mining Company, Rupununi Miners Association, and the 2 showers of 8 South Rupununi indigenous communities. He expressed disappointment with what seems to be new positions coming from the parties, who appear not to want to act in good faith. According to him, the ministry believes that Romanex can do more to accommodate the small miners and that the Rupununi Miners Association should abide with the mediated agreement and take up lands set aside for them as agreed.
It appears that persons are attempting to derail the mediation agreement to which all parties had committed, had endorsed, and celebrated. This division seems to be driven by knowledge of the quantity of resources in the area.
Lawrence assured that there are enough resources in the area to provide for all the parties engaged if good sense prevails.
The Ministry of Natural Resources is of the firm view that mediation is the best and only way forward on resolving the issue and stands committed to that process.
Back in April 2016, the government of Guyana, through Minister of Natural Resources Raphael Trotman, intervened in a standoff between small miners from the Marudi Mountain area, representatives of indigenous communities, and Romanex Guyana Exploration Limited, and facilitated a historic mediation process with the help of Major General retired Joseph Singh. Alexis Rodney for InfoHub.
We end with this report. Paul McAdam informs us that a financial expert briefed Cabinet on the setting up of the Sovereign Wealth Fund today.
The Cabinet brief was conducted by Commonwealth Economic Advisor, Natural Resources Division, Dr. Daniel Wild, on the main components of the Sovereign Wealth Fund legislation.
The main components were the relationship between the Sovereign Wealth Fund and the annual budget, ensuring that all petroleum revenues are transparently paid into the fund, the management of the Sovereign Wealth Fund, which ensures appropriate checks and balances, and that the Ministry of Finance is the overall manager on behalf of government, and that the Bank of Guyana is the operational manager. And then we also talked in some detail about the reporting arrangements and auditing arrangements, which should ensure that the Sovereign Wealth Fund, the Natural Resource Fund, is transparently and well managed, with a number of reporting requirements.
Dr. Wild, who has a wealth of experience in helping to craft similar legislation in other countries, added that the reports quarterly and annually compiled to international standards must be submitted to the Parliament and eventually made public. He stated that Guyana is on the right path with the move to establish the fund before oil production actually begins.
The Ministry of Finance is now planning to present a number of rules for withdrawals from the fund to Cabinet, and there'll be discussions with Cabinet about those rules. And once that decision has been taken, they'll be put in the Sovereign Wealth Fund legislation with the aim, as I understand it, of finalising the Sovereign Wealth Fund legislation and presenting it to Parliament and having it approved by Parliament.
Finance Minister Winston Jordan described the event as an opportune time to brief his cabinet colleagues on what to expect legislatively. Work on the fund's legislation, which is compliant with the Santiago Principles and international best practices, has been ongoing since 2016.
We have been doing the work quietly at the Ministry of Finance with Dr. Weil and the other stakeholders that have given us assistance. So we are nearing the end of the near to breast the tape, so to speak.
For Minister of Natural Resources Raphael Trotman, the progress being made may not be as swift as some would want.
Progress to me has to be slow, it has to be steady, and it has to be safe. We don't want to rush legislation, and we would have consulted far and near around the world and countries and listened to experts that ensure that the Santiago Principles and all of the key elements of a good sovereign wealth fund are present in this bill.
According to Minister Trotman, the government is on track to have the Sovereign Wealth Fund in place before oil production starts in 2020. Paul McAdam for InfoHub.
Check our website or Facebook page for more details as we bring you updates on developments across Guyana and further afield. Thanks for watching, and remember to connect with us 24/7 on our website and social media. Goodbye.
The taxes we pay provide revenue for the government to use to develop and improve our country's infrastructure and the life of all Guyanese.
If we pay our taxes, the government will be able to build more roads, schools, hospitals, bridges, and other government facilities.
The government will also be able to use those funds to pay better wages and salaries to public servants and to improve government services.
This will help to attract more investors to our country, create jobs, and reduce poverty.
Let's invest in our country. Pay your taxes.
A message from the Ministry of Finance and the Guyana Revenue Authority.